word yet from the 6 women who decided that George Zimmerman was not guilty of murder or manslaughter in the shooting death of Trayvon Martin. The jurors remain anonymous amid countless questions about the verdict that only they can answer. Criminal defense attorney Pate joins me here in Atlanta, and former prosecutor Beth Karras is in New York. Welcome to both of you.
Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning. So, Paige, I'll pose the simplest question for you. Can the jurors remain anonymous forever under court order?
They can. Jury anonymity is protected under both state of Florida law and federal law, and you want to have that, because if jurors thought that by serving and doing their civic duty that their identity could be broadcast and people could know who they were, then I think you would have a problem with people wanting to serve. So it can be protected.
Well, Beth, I understand that during trial, but after the trial, when everything is over and we live in a transparent society, should jurors remain anonymous?
Well, it really is kind of contrary to Florida law. I mean, they have a very open policy there when it comes to their court records, police records. It's very easy for the public to get a hold of documents there in advance, as opposed to other states. The defense has asked that the jurors in this case remain anonymous for 6 months, just as the judge did in the Casey Anthony case. He ordered that. The media's already filed a motion a couple of days ago saying, look, don't make a decision on not releasing the jurors' names until we have a hearing on this, because we have a right to know who these jurors are. So we'll see what Judge Nelson does. She may have a hearing on it, but as far as I know, she hasn't ruled yet. I do think, though, that people know who these jurors are. The media is very crafty. I've covered trials for 20 years across the country, and usually people in the media know at least some of the jurors, and they'll speak out eventually.
Yeah, but in this case, I mean, it's a court order. We're not allowed to contact these jurors. So what would happen, Paige, if a reporter did?
Contempt of court. If you violate a court order, then the judge can bring you into court and say, look, I told you not to do this, you did it, I can fine you, or I can even send you to jail.
Beth, you mentioned the Jodi Arias trial. We heard from jurors in that case, despite their wish to be anonymous.
You know, I misspoke. I meant Casey Anthony. If I said Jodi Arias, I have Arias on my mind. I just got back from Phoenix. No, those jurors have spoken out. There was no order there. And jurors, a number of them have spoken out. Everybody knows who they are. I mean, the media there worked for months. It was a 5-month trial. I meant Casey Anthony. I apologize. In Casey Anthony, the judge said, because there was so much animus against the jury, people really blamed jurors for that acquittal. Obviously, it was their decision. They were protected for 6 months. Their names were eventually released, though Belvin Perry did do it, I think maybe the following October or later. Yeah.
Well, but Paige, these protests are going on all across the country. Tensions are very high. The jury members, they have a chance to kind of settle things down, because only they can answer questions about why they found George Zimmerman not guilty. For example, was it Florida Stand Your Ground law? Was it something else? Did they think race did not factor in? Did they think that race didn't factor in under the law, and that's why they made their decision? If these jurors would answer these questions publicly, might it not help calm things down?
I think so, and I totally expect at least one juror will eventually come forward. In my 20 years of trying these cases, I've never had a situation where the jury didn't want to talk about what they did. They know that they've been under a lot of scrutiny. They know that this trial was watched by millions of people. I think they want to explain how they reached their verdict, and I expect someone will.
Yeah, and Beth, I just want to make it clear that I do understand why the jury might not want to come forward publicly, because, you know, there have been several angry tweets kind of attacking them, and not in a good way.
Yeah, social media is playing a role now that's actually very troubling in these trials. I mean, we saw threats against witnesses in the Jodi Arias, now I do mean the Arias trial, and it is problematic. I mean, are they empty threats? Yeah, maybe, but they are frightening. I do agree with Paige, though. Jurors do eventually come out, at least one, and I think that, you know, at least one will come out to say, look, we followed the law. I'm sorry, I do feel that, you know, or maybe I wanted to find him guilty of something, but when you follow the law, which is what we believe we did, we just couldn't convict.
All right, Beth Karras, Pate, thanks so much for your insight this morning. I appreciate it. Now to a bizarre twist in that deadly crash of an Asiana Airlines flight last week in San Francisco. Airline officials say they will sue a San Francisco television station after it aired phony and racially offensive phrases and said they were the names of the pilots of the doomed flight. The names were mistakenly confirmed by an NTSB intern. KTVU has apologized.
Tonight, we want to take a moment and say that we are sorry. Earlier today, during our noon newscast, we misidentified the pilots in the Asiana Airlines crash. We made several mistakes when we received this information. First of all, we never read the names out loud, phonetically sounding them out. Then, during our phone call to the NTSB, where the person confirmed the spellings of the names, we never asked that person to give us their position within the agency. We heard this person verify the information without questioning who they were, and then we rushed the names onto our noon newscast.
Joining me now is defense attorney Pate and in New York, former prosecutor Beth Karras. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Okay. This is such a bizarre story. I can't even believe that this actually happened. But the television station, you heard, they went on the air immediately and apologized. Will that help them, Beth?
Yes, indeed it will. In fact, the law does take a look at and take into account if someone apologizes, acknowledges, retracts a statement, a defamatory statement. What this does is not let a media organization off the hook, but it does limit the kind of damages that a plaintiff, the airline, the pilots could get. And let's face it, I mean, their reputation right now is suffering by virtue of the crash. I don't know how they could even quantify damages related to these statements.
Well, I was just asking Paige. I mean, it was a terrible thing that happened. I can't believe the NTSB would let an intern answer reporters' questions. That's just insane. No offense to any interns out there, but you're inexperienced. You shouldn't be put in that position, right? Plus, you have to wonder what was in the intern's head, because surely the intern knew too.
Ask somebody else.
What I was going to ask you is, what real harm did this do to the airlines?
Well, that's a critical question. This type of lawsuit is called a defamation lawsuit, and you have to prove two things. One, they said something false. I think that's clear here. And two, that there was harm to the individuals they were talking about. So I think that's going to be the real challenge here. And it's also a different standard when we're talking about suing a TV station versus suing the NTSB. You cannot simply sue the government for something like a defamation claim. You have to go through a special maybe, and that's a lot more difficult.
Well, Beth, the names that were confirmed by the NTSB, I mean, Soom Ting Wan, it seems like it would be obvious to even that intern that he was confirming erroneous information.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I had seen it when it was circulating on YouTube, and I remember thinking, how could anyone write this, prepare the graphic, read it on air? It went through several individuals, you would think. I mean, from the intern to whoever prepared the graphic to the anchor who read it, maybe a producer. It's hard to believe someone didn't know this was a joke, and a rather offensive one.
Yeah, and Asiana, as Beth said, Paige, has other problems to deal with. I mean, why even bother with this?
I think it's more an issue of reputation. If you want to defend your reputation, you have to be aggressive about it sometimes. And so sending a message that if you say something about us, you say something about our pilots, you better be right or we're going to take action.
Pate, Beth Karras, thanks so much. We appreciate it, as always.